Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Warbird Wednesday. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum, and I am back. Greg has returned. Greg, I did that thing with Jason last week. You know, we did the video. It just wasn't the same. I missed you, so welcome back. He missed me too. There you go. Now, of course, with that, Greg has gone completely over the top. What is this? A floral toque, perhaps? I don't know what this is. I am Nanook of the forest. I'm not really sure, but he's gone over the top with the hat today. My enervated assistant. Here we go. We're going to toss this, see if it goes off camera. There you go. Good catch by the Kenny. So we are now done with Ukraine, and we're going back and starting to talk about experimental airplanes as we go towards our F-117 opening. The opening of the hangar, we're going to go through that. Today we are talking about the Fisher, the P-75 or the XP-75, the Eagle, because they actually built a couple of different versions of this airplane. I will talk about that. Now I'm going to use, this is not a P-75, but it is close enough. This is a P-39. So I'm going to use this aircraft to show some of the features they shared in common. Obviously a plan view. Greg can throw a plan view up of the airplane. Now we got to get back into that familiar feel, Greg. We've been out kind of doing all these modern weapons. Now the P-75 Eagle was a kind of late at the end of the beginning or the middle of the war, late 1942, 1943, design review that was put out that needed a heavy fighter that was fast and had a really great rate of climb. And there were a number of companies that chased it. One of them was the Fisher body division of General Motors. Now, I'm a Camaro freak. I have Camaros, and if you go in the little door sill there, it says Fisher on the little door sill on the body. That they made primarily car bodies for General Motors. But like everything else in World War II, all these factories, they were building weapons at that time. So Fisher decided that they were going to go and get into the airplane business. Now, they also did another thing, and this is where it gets kind of weird, Greg. This airplane is the epitome of weird. If there was ever a Frankenplane, this might be it. Let me explain why. The outer panels of the airplane were going to be from a P-51, but they decided later to substitute a P-40. The tail would be from an A-24, which is an SBD. So you're following me now. Fighter wing panels, the tail of an A-24, the undercarriage of an F-4U Corsair. Okay, so you're with me right there. And the reason we chose this airplane today, this had that Bell kind of mid-engine design drivetrain. The only difference in the P-75 is it had counter-rotating propellers. So that's kind of interesting. Now, my question for you is, Greg, what could go wrong? Take a whole bunch of dissimilar aircraft parts and put them all together, and voila, you're going to have a new airplane and it's going to work great. Well, maybe, maybe not. We're going to find out. So remember, it was big on rate of climb, and it was also heavily armed. 10 50 caliber machine guns. So this thing was a monster. Now, how are we going to power it? We're going to power it with a 3420 24-cylinder engine. Okay, so now we've gone from a 12-cylinder to a 24-cylinder engine. Now, it was a tail dragger configuration. You know, there were some things about it, but what could go wrong, right? Well, let's talk about what went wrong. First of all, when they put all that together, they had a bad center of mass on the airplane. In other words, the center of gravity on the airplane was off. They had enormous cooling problems with the airplane. It did not produce the amount of power that they expected in the XP series of airplanes that they initially designed. And the last problem was, and this is a problem with those Bell aircraft, the 63 and the 39, it had bad spin characteristics. So right out of the gate, the first flight on the airplane was in 1943. They had a lot of trouble with it. So much trouble that they said they built 8 XP-75s, and they went, this isn't going to work. So what they did is they went back and they completely re-engineered the airplane. They went away from that kind of canopy that was further back on the fuselage. They came up with a bubble canopy, and there was a change of center of gravity in the airplane, and they pretty much solved most of the challenges. But the airplane continued to underperform. I wouldn't say it was a great airplane. They still thought, though, they had a winner, and they kept playing with this airplane for about a year. Now, why would you say, would you put all of those indifferent parts together into an airplane? One thing, Greg, they're already built. If you know anything about manufacturing, and we've got our T6 opened up here, you can see all the cool stuff behind me that you don't normally see with the skins on it. We're servicing it. If you have all that stuff designed and sitting in a factory, and you could put all these panels together, you have the jigs, all the manufacturing stamps, you could build a completely new airplane, and you didn't really have to do a lot of new engineering, right? Makes perfect sense. In reality, it was probably one of the worst ideas that they could have ever come up with, and the airplane continued to soldier on a little bit in flight test, but it never really reached its potential. So this was one of these kind of great ideas that just never went anywhere. But one thing that jumps out of this that's really important is the American workers and the plants. Whether, we talked about Fisher being part of this, and that is the kind of Rosie Riveter aspect and the American workers in these plants. Remember, we had taken a lot of plants that were making refrigerators or automobiles or whatever, and we retooled them in a relatively short period of time to where, in many cases, we were turning out 1 airplane a day or 2 or 3 or 5 airplanes a day. And it's one of the reasons why the United States ended up with so many airplanes and why we won the war. That was all done with the American worker and at these factories. So although this was not a very good idea at the end of the day, taking all these disparate airplanes that had been engineered for other purposes and kind of homogenizing them, it is a terrific example of taking American manufacturing, retooling it, and actually getting something that would fly, which is shocking. If you go out and look at each one of those airplanes and you think about they got amalgamated into one airplane that actually flew, it's amazing that they were able to pull that off, because aircraft design isn't like that. So where you can just take a piece off one airplane and Flight of the Phoenix as an example, and maybe you can do that to get out of a desert, but you're not going to build a frontline fighter that way. But the Rosie the Riveter aspect and the manufacturing aspect, we had so much capacity in the system that we're able to even contemplate doing that. And that in and of itself is amazing. So today, Greg has got, this goes along with the whole floral thing, a Waialaka Ua Jua, whatever, Huba Huba something, Soda Works, a Lily Koi natural soda. I have no, now there isn't, they didn't get the memo. I have no idea what this is. There's finest Hawaiian quality. So Hawaiians are known for their Hawaiian quality. We know that. So this must be an amazing soda. 140 calories. I have no idea when this was bottled. It's not doing anything. Yeah, Greg's like, don't worry about that. Don't bother yourself with that. No fizz. Well, there's something going on there, but I had to really listen to you. Heard it? All right. And Greg's like, yeah, I heard it. Take a drink of that, buddy. All right. So we'll see if Greg knocks me off. They did not get the memo about pure cane sugar today, which is interesting. that Hawaiian luau has, yeah, Greg is doing his Waialaka Hiki, whatever he's doing there. Man, that's awful. Well, I don't even know what this is. Customary second sip. There it was. No, we're going to pass. I love Hawaii. I love everything about Hawaii. I don't know who would drink this. I don't know. Even the finish, it has like a, I don't even know how to describe the finish. The finish just comes back and smacks you in the face. So it's just, that's kind of an interesting soda. So somebody drinks it. Obviously, they bottled it. So even though, as I said, the P-75 is a miracle of American manufacturing know-how to basically take all those pieces and parts and amalgamate them into the Frankenfighter, right, which is what we'll call it. It just, even when they got it sorted out, it wasn't a great performing airplane. It was only at top speeds 433 miles an hour. At that point, the later versions of the P-47 and the P-51 were much faster, been completely sorted out, and the Air Force, Army Air Force, did not need another heavy fighter. So they did some additional testing. They used it for testing, but by October of 1944, the program had reached a dead end. At that point, as I said, they had built 8 XP-75s, and they had built 6 P-75s, which were the more refined kind of fighter version of the airplane. The airplane at that point went into history. Now, what happened to it? Fortunately, there is one surviving example in the Air Force Museum. It had a tremendous amount of corrosion in it, and it was refurbished in, I think, the late 90s, and it's still with the Air Force Museum, but there is one airplane on display. That's highly unusual for these kind of short-build airplanes, especially for a national museum. And that airplane, if you ever get over to the Air Force Museum, check it out. It still exists. Comparable aircraft to this, and we'll have Greg have some fun here, is the Arsenal, the VB-10, the Vultee, the XP-81, the Focke-Wulf, the TA-152. Now, that actually is a combat airplane. We've talked about the Focke-Wulf, the TA-152 as well. Probably one of the best German fighters built to the war, although not built in any numbers. And the Republic, the XP-72. Noticed that most of those airplanes have an X in front of the P, which means they never made it out of the prototype stage. But it isn't. It is. There is no try. There is only do. We'll focus Yoda here. Yoda wasn't around back in World War II, but if he was, he probably would have said there is no try. There's only do. In this airplane, they tried really hard, but they didn't do, Greg. They didn't get it done. I'm sorry. Greg is looking at me like, well, it was a good idea. So that is the tale of the Fisher, the P-75 Eagle. Now, if you want to set up your little factory at home and have your own Rosie the Riveter action figure, which Greg does, he marches his figure around the office and has her build various things. You can go out, click on the link. Jason will happily send you this action figure. We can get that out to you, and we love that kind of stuff. If you, we can't do any of this. Now, this is a great example behind me of what we do. This is one of our flying airplanes. If you want to see us keep flying and keep doing the stuff we do, go out to our website, hit that donation button. We can always use a few bucks. If you came across us on Facebook and you like us, give us a like, give us a, tell people about the program. If you came across us on YouTube, a lot of places to come across us. Do you know, Greg, we're like on Twitter and Instagram, and our social media person keeps putting all this stuff out. But if you came across us on YouTube, subscribe. If you like people, or if you have folks, if you like people who like aviation, is that like a prerequisite? It might be. Go ahead and forward it to them. We only do military airplanes. That's all we talk about. And if you can get past the hats and Greg trying to poison me each week, we can pull this thing off. But Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we appreciate you giving us the time today. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Thanks so much. Have a great day.